Hello, and welcome to the Block Explorer. I'm Colin Brightfield.
Hey folks, I'm Cash Upton.
The Block Explorer is here to educate and inspire you about the world of crypto and NFTs.
We'll do deep dives into critical concepts for understanding what's happening and discuss the current events shaping the space.
We're making this podcast for the curious, the free thinkers, and the change makers that propel us forward.
As we embark on our adventures, remember that none of this is financial advice and crypto can be risky.
In this episode, we discuss what's happening in the world of NFTs as we start off the new year. It's been an amazing, exciting start off to 2022 in the world of NFTs, and we got a lot to talk about. So let's dive in, Cash.
It's already hitting the bull market. It feels like big numbers for NFTs in the space, and we're not even halfway through the month yet.
Yeah, so crypto tokens are down. ETH is down, Bitcoin's down. There's a lot of FUD in the market. Fear and greed index is pretty low right now. But NFTs, they're bullish right now. They're in a bull market. So it just goes to show you, there's always somewhere in the crypto space that's pumping. You just have to kind of know where to look. And there's been a couple really big developments in the NFT space that are just having it just blow up. Like OpenSea, the volume has been insane so far to start in January. It looks like they're going to do a record month.
Yeah, Dune Analytics report showed $2.2 billion so far in January. And again,
and it's only
halfway.
January 13th as at time of recording. And I think this data came out yesterday. So this was yesterday maybe. So they did over $3 billion in volume. A couple of months in the end of 2021, I think like August and September were up there. But they've had 6 days so far this year of over $200 million in volume. And so OpenSea, a lot of volume, lots going on in the NFT bull market. We've seen some collections really go through the moon as we start off the year.
Yeah, and OpenSea got a pretty big valuation at $13 billion. Looking to go the IPO route, perhaps?
Yeah, they just had a big raise, another big fundraise. And yeah, it looks like they're leaning into the IPO situation. And that's causing, some backlash in the crypto community because, that's not necessarily like the Web3 native thing to do. Web3 crypto community likes a token. And, maybe, reward the users of OpenSea that have made it so valuable and all the people who've been paying astronomical gas fees to buy, trade, and sell NFTs on OpenSea. But they're a centralized company. They're kind of like what I would call like a Web 2.5 company, kind of straddling Web 2 and Web 3. Yeah, it leaves more room for more Web 3 native competitors, more decentralized versions of NFT marketplaces that reward the users instead of big corporate VCs. But yeah. What's your thoughts on it?
No, I agree. I think it's going to bring more decentralization into the space. We've seen some other competitors coming in. Looks Rare, a decentralized NFT platform. They have a platform where when you do a transaction, it takes Looks tokens, and then you also get a percentage of the tokens from the platform in rewards. You got some of those recently, right, Colin?
Yeah. So Looks Rare is a decentralized version of OpenSea. It's an NFT marketplace, and they launched this past week. They did an airdrop to kind of bootstrap their launch, which has become a popular strategy as of late. I feel like January has been just like the month of airdrops, but a lot of these airdrops have been kind of suspect or just kind of like not really taking off. There was the OpenDAO SOS token, which was kind of a response to OpenSea maybe going the IPO route. So they did a token airdrop based on a user's OpenSea trading volume, so how much ETH he traded on OpenSea. And that was a highly claimed airdrop. Over 170,000 wallets claimed that. But it's one of those, where it's highly diluted, right? So it's like thousands of a penny, right, for one of them. But Looks Rare, they're interesting because they did another airdrop, and they are doing a thing where it's completely community run. And if you hold the tokens of Looks, then you get a percentage of the trading platform fees. Just like OpenSea like collects like 2.5% of a royalty fee if you trade any NFT. Like if you sell an NFT in OpenSea, 2.5% of what you sell it for gets siphoned out by OpenSea and goes to the platform. So they have a 2.5% royalty fee on LooksRare, but that 2.5% fee goes to a big vault for everyone that holds Looks, and then it gets distributed out to everyone that's holding Looks tokens.
Yeah, pretty cool. Disclosure, we are both owners of Looks tokens. So we'll see what happens.
There's a lot of owners of Looks tokens because it was a pretty big airdrop. You had to spend at least 3 ETH on OpenSea in between June and December 2021 to get the airdrop. So if you were trading on OpenSea and you spent more than 3 ETH in those 6 months, then go to their website and check it out, and you might be able to claim some Looks tokens.
Yeah, I didn't spend more than 3 ETH, but I bought a few Looks because, well, got to be in on that. Rewarding members for the volume. We like that.
Yeah, well, it's the Web3, model here is, you create a token, create a community, and reward the users with the token. Right now, like, OpenSea is not rewarding their users directly with like the value that the users have created for OpenSea. Like OpenSea has a $13 billion valuation, but they're not sharing that $13 billion valuation with their users,
Right. Yeah, I think that's what's going to really show more competition coming their way.
Yeah, I mean, LooksRare is just the first of many. I mean, if LooksRare is able to get a lot of momentum and keep it up, which it has been. If you right now, they're actually averaging more daily volume than OpenSea. It's hard to see how much of that is wash trading versus actual people migrating. But yeah, I think 2022 we're going to see a lot of disruption happening in the NFT marketplace. It's still so young, and I mean, OpenSea is enjoying, like, it has 90% of the market share right now for the trading volume in the marketplace. But at one, I don't think that's healthy for the market to have a big monopoly like that. And two, as we'll talk about later in this episode, there's some weird, abnormalities that you kind of get when you have a company that's kind of trying to bridge the gap between Web 2 and Web 3 rather than just being a Web 2 or Web 3. There's some kind of weird, funky things that can happen. So we'll talk about those.
Some big money coming into the space. We got Range Media partners with Recur. Back in September, they raised $50 million for a valuation of $333 million. And they're doing stuff to shape the future of fan-driven entertainment NFTs. And they just yesterday announced a partnership where they're going to be bringing in filmmakers, actors, musicians, creators, activists to be able to help more on-chain branded experience with NFTs. So pretty validating to see that money in players. Colin, who was with the Range and the Recur? We got some big names coming in supporting
the Winklevoss twins, Gary Vaynerchuk,
Winklevoss,
some of the investors.
That's the
Winklevoss
Gemini
twins
founders?
are the Bitcoin, billionaire brothers.
Do they found Gemini Exchange?
I'm not sure. But I know that, they're the ones that, may had the idea for Facebook that Mark Zuckerberg then took. And
oh, right. Okay. Well, there you go. Compete with some Meta right there.
Exactly. Maybe this is like one of their big plays to kind of like get back at Zuck with like the big, this is their metaverse play. Yeah. So I think this is really cool because there's a lot of smart money coming into the NFT space. I mean, Gary V isn't dumb. He's say what you want about him and what his projects or whatever, but he understands people very well. I think he is a good read on people, and he's one of those people that's always kind of on the bleeding edge of what's going on. He was an early investor to Twitter, early investor to Facebook. Big social media guru guy. He's early to NFTs. Yeah, there's V Friends, if you're not familiar, his collection. So yeah, this is just an expansion of NFTs really getting more and more into entertainment.
We had some censorship happening in the NFT space. centering around China.
China's done some weird stuff with the NBA. You know, the NBA and China have a kind of a fraught history, but it's also a huge market for the NBA. So they kind of have to tiptoe around. And so there's an NBA NFT collection. If our listeners aren't familiar, it's called Top Shots. It's one of the earlier ones that kind of got a lot of traction last March. And NBA Top Shots are video moments of NBA players making baskets or making great plays. And they have 3D elements, and then they have the little actual moment, the little short clip of the video and some other aspects. So they're kind of like digital basketball cards, but that show like the moment, like tied to each player. And you can buy them in packs and whatnot, but it all exists. They're created by Dapper Labs, and it all exists kind of in this closed Dapper Lab NBA Top Shot ecosystem. And so there's a centralized database. You have to make your account, and your top shots, your NFTs that are in that project stay in that project. So what happened anyway, there was a user who made a username called Free Hong Kong, and their assets got all locked up.
China doesn't want that bad Hong Kong press, huh?
The NBA doesn't want to lose the market of China, and they understand that. And there was an interesting tweet a while ago from one of the NBA prominent officials, and he said something about Hong Kong, and it created a lot of controversy. And they got the NBA into hot water, and China isn't afraid to ban things, and so it's a huge, obviously, like I said before, it's a massive market for the NBA. So it's kind of weird that this person's account got frozen though. And they have money in there that they can't get out now.
Yeah, it really does call into question the centralization of those companies that bridge Web 2 and Web 3, the 2.5 companies.
Yeah, because people think, okay, I'm getting an NFT, it's mine. But if you're in a walled garden type of ecosystem like Top Shots, it's not really yours. They still have custody, right? So there's this question of custody, and you have to ask that when you look at some of these applications and you look at some of these projects. Are you the owner? Do you have custody, or does the app still have custody? Like, do you have to ask them permission to do stuff? And earlier, but in Top Shots had a big controversy too, because they had a delay on how long it took to withdraw your money. At first, it was actually up to almost like 60 days to withdraw your money. And then they tried to get it down to like 30. But a bunch of users were like, what? Like, this is my money. Like, I want to withdraw it. And they're like, well, this is to protect you from fraud. But it's just like, these centralization vectors it's all fun until someone gets all their assets frozen by an entity just because they have a username that goes, could get the brand in hot water. I don't know. It doesn't feel like Web3 to me. That feels like Web2.
And when more and more stuff like this happens, it may sway some people's opinions more about the value of decentralization. That's what we've been talking about. The whole decentralized finance, decentralized web. Who has the power to censor? We don't want hate speech, but this person's trying to do freedom, liberation speech about freeing Hong Kong, and they're getting shut down. So censorship is a big deal with centralization. Speaking of China, in an interesting move, which actually, if you think about it, probably not too out of the ordinary because there's a lot of money in NFTs, but China plans to legalize NFTs separate from cryptocurrency, which is banned in China, except for their central bank digital currency. But they plan to bring NFTs to the market, which another validating source of just, China doesn't want to miss out on that market share.
And I'm sure there's going to be some kind of like centralized way where they could track all the NFTs in a weird way. So, and surveil people with them. Maybe they'll require everyone to have an NFT that is like their ID that they can just kind of like scan, that you have to like, I can see that happening.
Right. And there are other crypto projects that are using cryptographic technology for identification. Maybe that would be an element to it.
That also is good to highlight, the difference between security, cryptocurrencies like ERC20s and, versus these that function more like equities, versus like NFTs, which function more like cultural objects. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why NFTs also have been able to take off so quickly as well, is because they're not necessarily financialized in the same way, even though they do have value and you can trade them. But like, you don't need the government to regulate people that have like a baseball card trading exhibition, right? Or like a Magic the Gathering card exhibition or Pokemon Go exhibition where they, meet up, where they trade cards. So I think it's kind of the same thing. Like it's a different, you're trading property and you can sell it like eBay kind of, versus like a stock market type situation. That might allow them to be more comfortable with it too. Because it's not necessarily creating an alternative financial system for them.
Right. They're not going to be trading Pokemon Go cards for lunch.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they might, who knows? But I think, this is a good point to circle back to, this debate that, not all NFT projects are created equal. Not our markets are created equal. We have to, I think it's good to point out, because we had this conversation actually this past week, what exactly is OpenSea? Because a lot of people don't realize that OpenSea isn't the blockchain, right? OpenSea is an app that sits on top of the blockchain. OpenSea is like the clothes that you put on and you wear, but they're not yourself. So NFTs, right? They live on a blockchain, and then these web apps that kind of create a nice window dressing and a viewing layer on top that reads the blockchain, and it can display them nicely for you, and then lets you do all these other nice features like buying and selling and stuff. But you have to remember, every time you're clicking something on any of these NFT marketplaces, whether it's OpenSea or Super Rare or whatever else, anytime you're clicking something on a website and it doesn't charge you gas or transaction fees, whether it's on Solana, Polygon, or Avalanche, Optimism, Arbitrum, it doesn't matter what blockchain it is. But anytime you're not actually paying a transaction fee, whatever, how much the gas is or whatever, then it's not actually on chain, right?
Right.
Every time you click something and it doesn't do anything, it doesn't charge you. Like, there's so many clicks that you do, right? It's not on chain. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening on a lot of these websites that people don't realize that's not on chain. And I think that's what you just need to know about it, right? And be educated. And so like, you can make your choices as you will. But it's just to know that, like, some people get confused, like, oh, like, I thought I was on the blockchain doing something that's completely censorship resistant, and then they get censored.
Like, right. And we have seen OpenSea censor people and NFTs that have been reported as stolen and freezing those assets, which obviously, stolen IP, no one wants to support that. But at the same time, is OpenSea the arbiter of that? To, they're not a court of law. How do they know if it was actually stolen or not?
Yeah, well, and they're not actually freezing the NFT because they can't.
Right, they're freezing it on their platform.
So not even freezing it on their platform. They were just refusing to display it because it's on the blockchain. So if people can send that NFT to other wallets, but yeah. So there was a recent incident where when NFT was stolen and then posted on OpenSea, and then someone, unbeknownst to the theft, was scrolling around and shopping, and they bought that NFT and had it in their wallet. And then OpenSea got wind that it was a confirmed stolen NFT. And so then they essentially blocked the ability for the user to buy or trade that NFT on OpenSea, the one who bought it. And they didn't reimburse, or, you can't give it back. It's on the blockchain. You can't reverse it. So you can't like revert the transaction. So the person who got it stolen lost, and the person who was just shopping around for cool NFTs and then bought it, they also got screwed. And then the person who stole it and sold it for 1 ETH quickly, they got away with 1 ETH. So it's like the incentives here are completely off. And, so, obviously OpenSea is, like I said, it's the viewing way, but it is right now, it's 90% of the market share. So if OpenSea doesn't let you share your NFT, then, it's going to be hard to sell it. But now this looks rare, right? And they're decentralized. They're not going to censor that stuff at this point. We'll see, they're just launched.
Yeah. And then a really interesting point that you brought up. We were talking about a project that we'll go into deeper detail later in the episode, but the Australia Open minting. And you're talking about how people write code and they have bots that scrub the floor for NFTs when the price is what they want. And as soon as someone clicks the button and pays the transaction fee and OpenSea puts that code onto the blockchain, a coder can purchase that off the blockchain without necessarily having to go through the OpenSea protocol.
Yeah, because they're just going straight to the smart contracts on the blockchain rather than, because you have to remember that a lot of these websites that are interacting with the blockchain, they're just user interfaces, right? They make it look pretty, they make it look easy, make it nice buttons and stuff. But all they're doing when you click these buttons is they're executing smart contracts on the back end. And so if you have if you can deploy a certain kind of smart contract that you can interact with, and you know how to, point them at the right things, you can, this happens often with minting too, right? With people minting directly from the contract. So you can bypass the website. And sometimes some of these websites go down under high traffic and a popular drop, a popular NFT minting. And so then there's people who have the expertise, they're more sophisticated and they know how to mint straight from the contract. And they can mint out the collection while the whole website's like not functional for the average person. So these are all, this is all just like, it's the wild, wild west, I mean, this is what if you go into Web3, this is kind of what you sign up for. It's what makes it crazy and fun, interesting. It's definitely not perfect by any means. But it's the frontier.
Right. And then, you have NBA Top Shots that's masquerading as Web3, but they're really not. They're a Web2 company and they have full custody over those NFTs, like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Live free or die. Come to the full decentralized version of the internet. Don't stay stuck in some custodial place where they can just lock your account because they don't like your username and not let you. There's actually, I was reading that the NBA Top Shots instance, so they had some stuff still posted for sale. And like they made a sale while their account was locked, but the sale was like locked. Their account was locked, but they made a sale and they still can't even like make that money. They can't get that money, but they made a sale. It's ridiculous. So let's move on to something more lighthearted and fun. Yeah. The Doodles. I really like this NFT project because it sticks out among the others in their whimsical nature and kind of inclusive approach to the art with a range of colors. They have joyful traits. They have lots of pastel colors and rainbows. And it's just kind of is a stark contrast to a lot of the other kind of like degen style art and all the apes and monkeys and whatnot that you see in a lot of the NFT profile pictures. So it's a profile picture collection. Yeah, and it's by the Canadian artist Burnt Toast, who did some work. He did some work for Snapchat and Google before. Okay.
And they have a pretty cool community owned treasury called the Doodle Bank. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So they have a treasury that then is used to do fun projects that the community votes on. And so it's a lot of NFT projects have this, but it's also interesting because there's people who used to work for Dapper Labs, which is also the same company behind NBA Top Shots and CryptoKitties. But these are also just kind of like OG projects in the space. So they have a lot of respect that way. But yeah, they used to work there, but maybe they don't work there anymore for a reason.
And they have a cool kind of composability, or what would you call this? They have the ability to make space doodles, but not get rid of your existing NFT, but kind of go between different forms of your NFT.
Yeah, you can switch between your regular doodle or a space doodle as much as you'd like. But if you have your regular doodle and you want to use your space doodle, your wallet can only hold one of those at any given time. So you have to essentially lock up your regular doodle and it unlocks your space doodle and you can rock that in your wallet, put that as your avatar, whatever. And then when you want to go back to your regular doodle, you're done being in orbit. You go back to the page, lock up your space doodle and unlock your regular doodle. And so the part of this is I think really smart is that it prevents the doodle community, because it's one of those 10,000 profile picture collections, from being diluted, right? Because like the Bored Apes did the Bored Apes, and then they did the Bored Ape dog club or kennel club. They did the dogs, and then they did the mutants. And some people argue that like they kind of diluted the ape vibes by doing so many other projects. But I mean, they also created a lot of value for their holders. So, but I think this is an interesting take on it, right? It's like, okay, cool. We're going to do another version for you, but it's limited still to 10,000, and it's only to the 10,000 that have the regular ones. And so it's like, it's actually not diluting the overall amount.
Yeah. And it seems like their evaluation, the average price has really been catching up to what's going on. They're hovering between 1 and 2 ETH back in late 2021 and jumped up to 20 ETH just a week ago or so.
Not 20 ETH, 11. The floor is 11.5 ETH right now. They started at they minted for 0.123 ETH. And then they were selling after mint for about 1 ETH floor for a while until like the beginning of or middle of November. And then they just went totally bananas. And now they were at the floor was, I checked I think I checked last week. Yeah, last week I checked and the floor was 9 ETH and now it's 11.5. So the latest one of those projects that went double digit ETH pretty quickly. Was October 17th. And then, so under 90 days into a floor of over in dollar amount. That's like 36, 37, almost $40,000, depending on what the price of ETH is. But yeah, it's over $35,000. So it's not something to scoff at.
No, not at all. As tennis players, we're both pretty excited about this NFT drop this week. The Australian Open launches NFTs. What can you tell us about
Australian Open? You're gonna do NFTs down under, cash.
Down under, baby.
Yeah, they did 6,776 unique NFTs that are digital designed tennis balls or generative art, and each of the balls' metadata will be linked to a 19 by 19 centimeter plot on each tennis court surface.
So the tennis court in a 19 by 19 centimeter plot has 6,776 plots.
Yeah, it's all divided into a grid. You can actually go look at the grid on their light paper, which is on their website, which is actually pretty cool to read through. Actually, if you haven't done it, I highly recommend it. It's fascinating what they're doing. So if any of the over 400 matches that they have during the entire tournament, if any of those matches, if the match point, if the ball lands in your grid during the match point, as on the final, the final bounce of the match, then you get a little sticker and the metadata that gets added to your NFT, plus all the metadata from that match gets added to your NFT.
Highlighting the match information, all that, put into history type stuff.
Yeah, the players, the round of the tournament, the score, all that kind of cool stuff. And then they have different colored stickers depending on each round that your match point was landed in. So if it's a certain color, I think it's like gold if it's a final, and then it's like red if it's like semifinals, blue, whatnot, all the way down. And if your NFT is linked to a spot on the grid in a championship match, so there's 11 different championship matches, the doubles, the women's, the wheelchair tennis, mixed doubles, beyond the singles. So in any of those 11 championship matches of the tournament, if the match point bounces in your square, they'll take the actual physical ball, put it in a handcrafted case, and actually mail you that actual physical ball to wherever you are in the world.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. So you talk about innovative use cases for NFTs. This is the first, I think, really cool sports integration that we've really seen. And I think, the Australians they're kind of ahead of us with NFTs down there. And the Australian Open, I mean, they've always been, I think, the most innovative Grand Slam tennis tournament out of the major 4 tournaments, right? We have Australian Open, we have French Open, we have Wimbledon, and we have the US Open. But the Australian Open, they've always been on the front line of always kind of doing cool stuff like this. And this Genesis collection of NFTs, they minted for 0.067 ETH. So about like $250, $300. They had a pre-mint and then they had a public mint, and the public mint sold out in like 8 minutes, 7 minutes. And the grass wars were crazy. And now the floor is, I think, like 0.3.
Yeah, it's right around. I just checked, it's 0.3. To get ahead of the line, they had a whitelist where if you owned a meta key, it unlocked the ability to be a priority minter. And the meta keys are pretty cool. They look like there's an NFT that looks like a credit card, but it has all this crazy cool NFT 3D animation stuff coming out of it. And there's some pretty cool projects that the MetaKey folks are doing out there, and essentially, having this VIP access to have a first come mint on it.
The key idea, creating like an exclusive key that if you own, and then that key lets you get other benefits. It's kind of like when I know in Santa Barbara they have the access card, right? So if you have the access card, it's this card that you can carry around, and that gets you discounts on like hundreds of different local merchants and restaurants and places that you would, if you're local in Santa Barbara, that you would use. And you pay like a one-time fee to get this card. But then once you have this card, it pays for itself essentially, and all the kind of discounts that you get as long as you use it, right? So the meta key is like this for NFTs, where you get this one key, and because you have this key, it gives you a bunch of VIP kind of exclusive pre-sale options for a lot of different NFT projects. And it looks like if you had a meta key, it would have paid for itself with this Australian Open pre-sale, because the mint was 0.067, and then now they're all selling for 0.3 something, and a meta key was 0.35. So if you had just bought a meta key and then a bunch of Australian Open NFTs and sold them for 0.3, you would have made your money back.
Right.
Yeah. So good food for thought. Looking forward in the NFT space. Look out for those keys and stuff like that.
Yeah, you managed to get a ball. You going to be excited to watch the Australian Open?
Yeah, I'm really, really excited. I wasn't able to mint one. I bought one off of OpenSea on the secondary market. I'm excited for the Australian Open. I am really looking forward to trying to watch some matches. The unfortunate fact is that it's in Australia. And so I think that when it airs, it's like 3 a.m. here, 2 a.m. I might be able to figure out, some matches I might be able to figure out with my schedule if it's a really good match, but I don't know how much of it I'm actually be able to stay up and watch without becoming like a nocturnal creature.
Yeah, but really cool to see that sports integration in real life.
Yeah, I think this is a really cool example of how NFTs are going to change the world, because no one saw this coming. Australian Open with linking so they're using the same technology they used to call the lines. So people are like, well, how are they linking the grid of the court to NFTs? So they literally did the hard work to figure out the tech. But the cool thing is they already had a lot of the infrastructure built, because they have this cool Hawkeye system that they use to call all the lines using a set of different cameras, and they have from different points of view, and they can actually create like a 3D arc of where the ball landed. And because they already built this out, and they actually have no line judges. Last year was the first year they had no line judges, like no human line judges. It's all electronically called. So this year they have the same thing. So they're like, well, might as well, we don't need to have line judges. We link it, and they're actually using Chainlink on the back end to help them link the data to the NFTs. Another cool aspect too is they're carbon offsetting all the NFTs as well. They did that with one of the companies in Australia that does carbon offsetting. So it's cool. Good. It's good all around. It's a real good feel good project. And if you like tennis, if you like NFTs, it's the thing to check out.
Going away from sports, we have some news in the medical world. We mentioned this in one of our first Nifties of what NFTs could be used for, but there's a new platform built on the Hedera blockchain where they're beginning to use NFTs for patient consent and medical information in clinical trials. So just another cool use case coming out of the blockchain for privacy and medical record. The Hedera blockchain is pretty interesting, Colin. We were both looking into that last week.
The Hashgraph tech is cool, but just because it has cool new tech doesn't mean it's going to be successful. But it's good to see this use case happening. People have been talking about blockchain for medical records for a long time as a really good use case. So I'm excited to see this happening.
Yeah, and definitely direct our listeners over to Hedera's website. They have a good tutorial video on what is Hashgraph consensus. So just another way that consensus on the blockchain come about. So cool to see that. We had a pretty big debacle.
Speaking of cool, Cash. Speaking of cool, it's getting a little frosty here. Getting a little chilly in the Pudgy Penguins community. Pudgy Penguins are an NFT project. 8,888. Excuse me. Pudgy Penguins, but it's a profile picture project. And the mood has turned icy.
Yeah, bit of a hostile takeover. Just a week ago, January 7th, there's a pretty big uproar within the Pudgy Penguin community of holders that own a Pudgy Penguin and essentially ousted their founder.
They literally just took him out, huh?
Yeah, so they were alleging that he failed to deliver on stated goals and drained the treasury, which has a pretty big treasury of 45,000 ETH in sales since July when it launched. So that's close to 140 million US dollars. And apparently the founder was promising a game, a token, an educational book on NFTs, and did not deliver. So the community wanted him out.
Come on, though. No one actually takes those roadmaps seriously on an NFT project. Come on, man. I can't believe these people. I guess they're like, who's buying these Pudgy Penguins? Come on. Like, you don't buy an NFT because of the roadmap. Like, these roadmaps are a joke half the time. So if you're not familiar, the roadmaps are these like kind of outlines that the NFT projects will put out. And they often put them on their website of like, oh, when we reach this amount of things, we'll do this, and they kind of have these goals, and a lot of them promise a game and this, that, and a token, an exchange, a way to stake, all this kind of stuff. Token, yeah,
right. So,
but I mean, how much of it actually happens and materializes? For a lot of these projects, it never really happens.
A lot of projects would be in hot water if they had to live up to their roadmaps.
Yeah. So, I mean, Pudgy Penguins was really successful, and now I'm not sure what's going to happen with it. I mean, maybe this adds to the allure, makes them go up even more.
And there's a mutiny, but they didn't. The community doesn't necessarily have the ownership, right? So they're talking about the buyout, but there's a proposition to launch Wrapped Penguins, which is a free NFT on the Meta Drop platform for any current Pudgy Penguin holders. And the idea would that would be a parallel community, and it would run off of a decentralized autonomous organization. So they're essentially trying to move their community to another NFT, but keep it Pudgy.
Yeah, I mean, NFTs are so new, right? We're going to see more of this kind of stuff happen because, I think one of the tricky things, right, is the IP, right? So they kind of want to create a different collection, essentially, that's like the same, map it to another one that they own the IP. I think there's another thing I heard about. They have offers of other people trying to come in and just completely buy the entire collection outright, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, for like $750 million. Yeah, 500 million, pretty big time. Another big name coming into the space, Eminem got a Bored Ape.
Mom cool Spaghetti ape. And a Bored Ape. They go together.
More and more celebs coming into the space.
I think, but it's funny. I don't know why it's all of the 90s celebrities, because Eminem got a Bored Ape, but then Britney Spears got one. Like,
yeah,
like it's, I want to, I think there's, the Bored Apes are kind of like the go-to because they're kind of already like super mainstream like that.
And speaking of mainstream, Shopify created a merchant platform. Everyone's probably familiar with Shopify, kind of a Amazon type competitor, but they're now allowing NFTs to be created through their app and on the third party blockchain, Gigi Labs.
Interesting. Shopify's, a full Web2 commerce company, and they just see, I think, dollar signs when they look at the NFT space, and they want in.
Yeah, a lot of people see dollar signs, and some have nefarious motivations. 2021 was the year of NFTs, but it was also the year of NFT rug pulls. So for our listeners who aren't familiar with that term, it's when you buy into a project and then the founder gets all the money from the minting and then books it and doesn't deliver on anything really, and just kind of leaves the community high and dry. So on the Solana blockchain, there's actually a DAO that was created called the Sanctuary. And its whole mission is to provide resources, community, and organizations to the Solana NFT communities that have been rugged, abandoned, let down, or otherwise broken. So pretty cool that they're, addressing this very issue to try to, bring some value or agency back to those holders that might have gotten left in the dark.
I don't understand. So 50% of the funds collected from the closing token accounts. What is that? What's a closing token account?
Yeah. So it sounds like there's an incinerator where you can burn the NFT. And then they're saying that there's some sort of like a hosting fee that is required to keep the project alive. And if enough gets burned, then there's some money that can come back to the treasury. But again, I think it's a very early concept of, are they trying to add?
I don't get where the money comes from.
Yeah, I did a bit of reading on it. Okay, so when an NFT is burned, the token account can be closed and the Solana deposited to be rented can be reclaimed. So Solana charges a small fee known as rent for maintaining the storage of accounts every 2 days. And most programs deposit enough for 2 years worth of rent on the storage account. So I believe the idea is that if you burn your NFT, you can then reclaim. It's roughly like 0.002 SOL for an NFT. So not much, but I guess the idea is it's kind of taking it out of the ecosystem if it's a project that doesn't have any agency.
Interesting. Yeah. So there is it's kind of like recycling like glass bottles or something, right? There's like the deposit fee, like there's a little bit of SOL. There's
Right.
a little bit of SOL left in there, even if it's been rugged, you know? So there's a little bit of interesting. So I didn't know that. So they include like the rent for essentially for it to be take up space on the blockchain.
Yeah, and I wanted to actually do it deeper.
If you can collect that rent up front by deleting it, essentially you can, by burning your NFT that's worthless, you can collect that rent, and then that rent gets distributed. Cool. That's really cool.
But I did want to do more research because this was the first that I heard about rent on the Solana blockchain. I thought once it's on the chain, it's on the chain. Yeah,
we'll dive deeper into that. And we'll dive deeper into rugs too, because we don't want our listeners to get rugged. And it's one of those things where if you're not careful, it can happen. But rugging is different than being silly and giving up your seed phrase. So don't do that. Don't be a Bored Ape holder and give up your seed phrase. No, just kidding.
But at the end of the day, enjoy the artwork and make sure that you like what it looks like. Because if it doesn't have much value, you at least want to be happy that you own it. So,
yeah, and an NFT is a special connection that you have to the art, and or the community or the project. It doesn't have to be art, but make sure you like it, because you might have the choice of just holding on to it or sending it to an NFT recycling system, like
to the incinerator.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up here for today. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave us a review.
We'd like to give a big thank you and shout out to our friend Matthew Patrick Donner, who's responsible for the Block Explorer production, including our music, mixing, and editing.
Thank you for exploring the world of blockchain with us. Crypto is changing the world, and we're here to ensure that you're ready.
Please subscribe and share our podcast with your friends and family.
We look forward to sharing our next episode with you.
Cheers.
Cheers.